Now, for the last 2 decades, annuities haven't even been in the question when it comes to retirement planning. Through a combination of falling annuity rates and more flexibility in terms of how and when you access your pension, fewer and fewer people were choosing to actually purchase an annuity when it comes to retirement. But in recent years, that has massively changed. And that's led a lot of people to wonder, are annuities actually worth purchasing in 2026? So in this video, I'm going to be discussing what an annuity is, what's actually leading more people to consider that now, and the various different things you want to think about and consider when you are making that decision on whether to purchase an annuity when it comes to retirement. Okay, so first let's talk about what an annuity is. Now, when you come to retire, there are a multitude of different options available to you in terms of how and when you access your pension. And one of those is purchasing an annuity. To purchase an annuity, you transfer the pension pot you've built up during your working career to an annuity provider. And you can do this either before or after you take your 25% tax-free lump sum. Now, if you do this before you take your 25% tax-free lump sum, you will then have a part of that annuity which is entirely tax-free, with the remaining 75% being taxable. And the rate at which you pay tax on that will be dependent on your other income when you come to retire. But for most people, that's going to be at 20%. However, if you choose to take your 25% tax-free lump sum and then transfer the balance to the annuity provider, then the entirety of that annuity will be taxable, again, likely at 20%. Now, the level of income you get from that annuity provider will depend on the annuity rate they offer you. And this is based on a multitude of different factors, such as the age when you purchase the annuity, your health at the time of purchasing the annuity, the type of annuity you choose, and also the general interest rate available at the time. Okay, so why are more people looking at purchasing an annuity now compared to 5 years ago? So on screen now, you can see the income you would have got from a £100,000 pension if you were to purchase the annuity at age 60. And you can see that back in 2008, that was nearly £8,000 a year. So that converts to an annuity rate of about 8%. However, you can see over the next 12 to 13 years, that annuity has actually fallen from that £8,000 a year to less than £5,000 a year. And as I mentioned, annuity rates often follow the general interest rate available at the time. And you'll know that over that period, interest rates fell dramatically. And you can see that reflected in the annuity rate available. However, if you fast forward to today, you will see that annuity rates have increased massively over the preceding 5 years since COVID, which has caused a lot of people to wonder if it is actually worth purchasing an annuity now compared to 5 or 6 years ago. So on screen now, I've put the latest annuity rates available for a variety of different types of annuity. Now again, there are various different annuities you can purchase, but the 3 main variables are whether it's joint life or single life, whether it's a level annuity or if it increases in line with inflation, and at what age that annuity starts to get paid to you. And you can see that depending on the option you choose can have a big impact on the annuity rate you get. Now, it's important to say at this point that these are the gross annuity rates. So this is the rate you'll get before any income tax is deducted. So now let's look at the net annuity rates to actually give you a bit more context as to the sort of level of income you could expect from that annuity. So you can see here, I've assumed your annuity is taxed at 15%. Now, again, if we come back to what I spoke about earlier, this is based on you using the 25% tax-free lump sum to purchase part of the annuity and the remaining 75% to purchase the taxable level of income. And as a result, this gives an aggregate tax of 15%. So you can see this illustrated in the net annuity rates available. And I've also put here, based on the £100,000 pension pot, what that net income would be at those various annuity rates. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going to be using a single life increasing annuity payable from age 60. So I'll be using this to compare the annuity rate you can get versus the other options you've got when it comes to retirement, to give you some context as to whether the annuity is actually worth purchasing and the things you want to consider when looking at that. So the first thing to look at when we are considering whether to purchase an annuity is the sustainability of that income. Now, when it comes to an annuity, as I mentioned at the start of the video, that annuity is payable for the rest of your life. So again, in this example, if you retired at age 60 and you lived to age 100, you would have that same level of annuity year in, year out for the rest of your life. Again, regardless of how long you live for and regardless of wider market conditions. So if we're looking at the sustainability of that annuity, this is very, very good because this is going to be payable for the rest of your life. So there's nothing to worry about here in terms of the sustainability of that annuity. Okay, so how does this compare to something like flexi-access drawdown, where clearly your pension remains invested and you're taking money from that drawdown pot each year? How does the sustainability of that compared to the annuity. So on screen now, I've modelled the average pension pot value from age 60 to the current life expectancy of a female in the UK of age 87. And what I've done is I've used the last 100 years of market data to show on average what that pension pot would be worth at each age. Again, based on withdrawing that same level of income that you could get from the annuity of £4,280 a year net of tax. So you'll see that we start with a pension pot size of £100,000, and on average you can then see at age 87, based on historical markets, you would have a pension pot size in today's value of £99,000. So based on this, things look relatively sustainable. You might be looking at this and thinking, okay, well then why would I choose an annuity if I can take the same level of income from a drawdown pot and have pretty much still that same pension pot intact when I reach the normal life expectancy? Now this is based on a balanced portfolio of 60% equities and 40% bonds. However, if we change a few things here, you can see how much of a difference that can make. So let's instead look at a more cautious portfolio of 30% equities and 70% bonds. And let's stretch that life expectancy out to, let's say, age 95, because typically, although the average life expectancy is your late 80s, when we're stress testing these as financial planners, we like to ensure that their money can last somewhere between age 90 and 95. So how does that make things look? And you can see here the impact this has. So this is a more cautious portfolio of 30% equities and 70% bonds, and we've stretched that timeline out to age 95. So you can see that in this example, things do not look quite as rosy. Now you're still left with a pension pot on average of about £1,000 when it comes to 95, but clearly this does not tell the whole picture, because a big thing people often overlook when it comes to drawdown and how that compares to an annuity is sequencing risk. And simply what this means is that when you retire can have a massive impact on the sustainability of that income. So on screen now you can see a bar graph. And each one of these bars represents a point in time that you've retired at some point over the last 75 years. And you can see here the sustainable level of income you could have drawn from that pension pot, again invested in a cautious portfolio of 30% equities and 70% bonds, based on a 35-year retirement from age 60 to age 95. So you can see straight away that this illustrates the impact of when you retire and how much you can actually draw from your pension sustainably. So you can see that if you retired in 1915, instead of that $4,280 that the annuity would have paid you, if you went into drawdown into a cautious portfolio, you could have drawn in today's terms less than £3,000 a year. Conversely, if you retired in 1982 and had that same 35-year retirement, you could have sustainably withdrawn, in today's terms, £9,000 a year. So as I said, this really illustrates the power of when you retire. Now clearly nobody knows what the returns are going to be during your retirement, but this gives you an idea of how volatile the sustainability of your income can be if you were to choose flexi-access drawdown, depending on when you retire and the returns you get during your retirement. And this shows you things in a bit more detail and contextualizes things when it comes to the annuity. So you can see here I've put a white line down the middle, which is the level of income you would get, again, from that single life annuity payable from age 60. And you can see that if you retired in 39 of the last 75 years, your sustainable level of income would have been less than that offered by the annuity. So when it comes to the sustainability of your income, this is where the annuity can be very powerful, because as I've said, regardless of how markets perform and regardless of how long you live for, you know that you're going to get that same level of annuity year in, year out. Now clearly this is based on a 35-year retirement and you being invested in a cautious portfolio. However, if you are taking a high level of risk, or if we change that retirement period to, let's say, 30 or 25 years, then evidently that's going to have a knock-on effect on the sustainable level of income you can draw from that flexi-access drawdown pot. But if you do really value that guaranteed income from the annuity and don't really want to be taking much more risk and leaving your pension invested, then this is one way in which the annuity can be really powerful and be suitable for you. Okay, let's now talk about the flexibility of income, and again, how the annuity compares with flexi-access drawdown. So with the annuity, once you've purchased that, that is irreversible. You're going to get that same level of annuity income year after year, and there's no way you can alter that. Now, for some people, this may not be a problem, but typically what we see as financial planners is that people typically spend more in the early years of retirement and less in the later years. So if you were to go down the annuity route, this could potentially cause a problem. So let's look at an example of why this might be the case and how we actually could remedy that. So in this fictional example, we've got James, who's planning to retire next year at the age of 60. His essential expenses are about £1,000 a month, and his non-essential expenses are about £800 a month. Now, above and beyond that, James would like to spend an extra £400 a month or so on holidays and travel for the first 10 years of his retirement. And currently he's got a pension pot of about £300,000, and he's also got a cash ISA of £40,000. So first, let's look at the annuity route. And you can see here that we've got him purchasing an annuity with that entire pension pot, which provides him with an income of about £12,000 a year. And to fund the remaining shortfall, he's then using his cash ISA to supplement that level of annuity income. Straight away, you can see there's a problem here, because that cash ISA runs out within the first 3 years of his retirement. And at that point, he's got a period of about 4 to 7 years of a shortfall between then and when the state pension comes into payment at age 68. And even once that comes into payment, there is still a small shortfall until his expenses reduce at age 70. And that's when we bump into the second and probably less common and obvious problem. Because once his expenses drop, he's got a surplus income each year. Because his annuity's in payment and that is fixed. And clearly his state pension's in payment and there's nothing you can do to alter that either. So he's then in a position where he's got about £5,000 a year of surplus income. So this shows you how purchasing an annuity can actually be quite inflexible if you are one of those people that's perhaps planning to spend a bit more in the early years of retirement and a bit less in the later years of retirement. So now let's look at a different approach in terms of how we can actually do this and ensure James can still meet his expenses and remove that surplus income once his state pension is in payment. So in this example, you can see we're still purchasing an annuity of about £8,000 a year, which is going to cover some of his essential expenses. And we're then using flexi-access drawdown to supplement that same level of annuity income. And you can see that then supports his income between age 60 and age 67 when his state pension comes into payment. And at that point, we can then supplement his remaining shortfall with that money in his cash ISA. And you can then see that from age 70, when those expenses reduce, he has no surplus of income, and the annuity income and his state pension fully cover his expenses. So you can see here how a hybrid approach to actually purchasing an annuity and using flexi-access drawdown can still give you that certain level of guaranteed income while still giving you that flexibility of spending more in the early years of retirement and less in the later years of retirement. Okay, so far we've compared the annuity in terms of the sustainability of that level of income and also the flexibility of that income if you do choose the annuity. So to finish off, I just thought it'd be worth giving you a couple of questions to ask yourself when you are making that decision whether to purchase an annuity or go into drawdown. So the first would be, would I prefer the certainty of an annuity income in retirement even if it means the income is potentially lower? So when I spoke about sustainability, you would have seen in some of those years, the income you could have got from the flexi-access drawdown pot was much higher than the annuity. Now, clearly this is for a cautious portfolio, but if you do take a balanced or more adventurous level of risk with your flexi-access drawdown pot, that's only going to have a more positive effect on the sustainability of income you could draw. So this question is really a risk one. Are you comfortable potentially having a lower level of income but taking a lower or no risk with that income? Or are you quite comfortable to leave your pension invested, go into flexi-access drawdown, and I suppose accept the bumps in the road in order to hopefully get a higher level of income throughout your retirement? The second question would be, do I see myself spending the same when I first retire as I will do in my 70s or 80s? Now, as I said, we often see people spend more in the early years of retirement, and simply that's because that is when they are going to be in their best health during their retirement. So clearly people are spending more money on things like luxuries, holiday and travel. But let's say, for example, most of your spending is essential, but you can't see your non-essential spending being that different from year to year, from when you're 60 through to when you're 80. And if that's you, this is one place where an annuity could be suitable because, as I said, the flexibility of that annuity income is, quite frankly, inflexible. So if you are planning to spend, as I say, a similar amount in the early years of retirement compared to the later years of retirement, then this could be one reason why an annuity could be suitable for you. And the third and final question is, am I comfortable with keeping my pension invested in the stock market when I no longer have a regular salary coming in. So for most people, the whole time they're working and they've got their money invested in their pension within the stock market, they are relatively comfortable in doing that because, for most people, their retirement is a long, long way away and they know they're getting that salary month in, month out from their employer. But once that stops, that can have a big psychological impact on how much risk someone's willing to take. So again, if you are in that position where you are a little bit more risk averse, this could be one reason why you may want to purchase an annuity rather than use flexi-access drawdown. So hopefully this video has been useful and you've enjoyed it. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel for more videos just like this in the future. And hopefully I'll see you in the next video.